Welcome back to Unlimited Recaps. Today we'll be diving into a horror adventure film from 2014 titled As Above, So Below. A film open with a dedicated archaeologist named Scarlett enlists the aid of 4 explorers to assist her locate an ancient relic she believes to be hidden in the catacombs beneath Paris streets. However, the explorers are left wondering if they would survive their voyage, as it turns out to be full of many supernatural occurrences. Scarlett records herself on a bus at the start of the film, claiming to have crossed the Iranian border and to be heading to an area where a network of caves will be destroyed. Even though Scarlett is aware that trespassing results in death, she is determined to investigate these caves because she thinks they may hold the key to unlocking a lost chapter of history. Later that evening, Scarlett runs into her buddy Reza, who opens a hole in the wall in his house by moving a table and showing her the path to the caves. Scarlett and Reza explore the caverns with a flashlight, attempting to avoid being discovered while soldiers pass in front of them. Reza tells Scarlett that they haven't started demolishing the caverns because it's not quite dusk, but Scarlett says they haven't started either. After racing through the tunnels, the 2 friends come upon a more lovely message written on a stone wall than Scarlett could have ever dreamed. As her buddy begs her to stop, Scarlett starts pounding at the wall. The stone crumbles, revealing a passageway that Scarlett enters. She is delighted to find a huge horned statue resembling an animal inside called the Rose Key, which instructs her to read the text on it. Reza begins to lose his cool and orders them to leave, but Scarlett refuses to back down and cries out that her father has dedicated his entire life to finding this statue. A countdown is audible in the background as Scarlett attempts to locate the writings on the monument. Upon exiting the hallway, Scarlett notices a man dangling in front of her. As the cave is destroyed, she keeps running and just about makes it out alive. With a gasp for breath and a rush of adrenaline, Scarlett runs out to locate Reza and they head back to his house. Reza maintains that she must exercise greater caution, claiming that her father's search led to insanity. Scarlett, though, refuses to back down and asserts that her father wasn't insane. Reza concludes that pursuing this quest is risky and declares that everyone who hunts for Flamel's stone is crazy. Everybody ends up dead. Scarlett is being videotaped when she makes her introduction as an archaeologist and lecturer at University College in London. The cameraman questions her about her father's lectures about the Philosopher's Stone while she is in Paris. Scarlett describes the stone's ability to transform ordinary metals into gold and bestow everlasting life, referring to it as the alchemical objective. She displays a historical drawing of the stone and talks about her father's conviction that symbols on Nicholas Flamel's gravestone hold the answers. Scarlett's tone shifts when someone inquires about her father's mental health. She discloses that her father committed suicide, raising concerns about his stability. While strolling around Paris with Benji, the videographer, Scarlett talks about Flamel and how grave robbers discovered his tomb empty. When they go to a museum, Scarlett tells them that although Flamel's tombstone symbols can be translated into Aramaic using the Rose Key, she still needs assistance with the language. In the scenario that follows, Scarlett breaks into a church in an attempt to locate her ex-boyfriend George. Reluctantly, George tells Scarlett about their previous journey, which ended with him being imprisoned in Turkey. He refuses at first, but Scarlett persuades him to assist with the Aramaic symbol translation. George reluctantly consents, but just to help with the translation. Leaves the museum, George deciphers Flamel's tombstone symbols. Scarlett thinks the hint is buried on the back, but nothing is apparent until she combines cleaning supplies and sets them on fire, exposing the words that are hidden. Scarlett uses her father's books to determine that the Philosopher's Stone is located 370.5 feet below the tombstone and suggests they enter through the catacombs to reach it. George interprets them as gates of hell. Scarlett persists, even if George is hesitant to go undercover. During their tour of the catacombs, Scarlett and Benji discover that this is the biggest crypt globally. When Benji turns to look behind him, the enigmatic child who gave them directions to find Papillon, the guide, has disappeared. At a club that evening, Benji, Scarlett, and George locate Papillon. Scarlett accepts since she isn't pursuing the treasure, but Papillon is reluctant to lead them to the tomb's forbidden area in exchange for half of the loot. George to accompany the group to the catacombs, but he vows he won't go the next day. Papillon presents Zed, their climber, and his girlfriend Suxi to Scarlett, Benji, and George. Benji keeps filming while the group talks about the plan, focusing on Papillon's hand scar, a question he subsequently poses to Zed. Zed responds, nevertheless, that he doesn't want to discuss anything. When Benji asks Suxi about the risks associated with the catacombs, she replies that they will perish without water and flashlights if their batteries run out. She also lists other risks, including rats, the police, drowning, and claustrophobia. Papillon advises them to exit the van quickly because getting caught by the cops will not go well. Group on a stroll to the tomb's entrance and back. Papillon points out a little hole that will lead them into the catacombs as the party puts on their headlamps and enters the confined area in front of the entrance. While Scarlett keeps pressuring George to go with them, Benji makes sure that every camera mounted on headlights is operational. George, however, is insistent that he will remain behind. Regretfully, George is compelled to pass through the narrow opening as Papillon is attacked by a policeman who emerges out of nowhere. As they pass through the narrow opening, Benji hands George a headlamp. Benji finds out that George's phobia of caves is a result of his brother's tragic drowning death when he was a little boy. Scarlett expresses regret for abandoning George in the Turkish prison while reiterating her gratitude that he is here. George had only volunteered to serve as Scarlett's interpreter, so it's understandable that he is terrified and furious at having to enter the catacombs. After eluding the cops, Papillon welcomes the gang. While exploring the tunnels, the group notices that Papillon has written his moniker, Pap, on a wall. As they continue to wade through the murky water, which becomes deeper the farther they go, the caves get more cramped. As they reach the end of the tunnel filled with water, they are surrounded by candles and a group of women who are singing hauntingly. One of the women, who appears to be the same pale woman Benji observed at the club the night before, looks straight into Benji's camera. The gang becomes tense when Papillon says they have to crawl through a passageway full of bones, but Scarlett says they should go through a hallway obstructed by boulders. But Papillon is adamant that this corridor is dangerous because nobody ever comes back from their trips along it. Papillon is certain that they should not pass through the passage, recounting to them the tale of his friend the mole, who entered the area but vanished from sight. All of them creep through the slender, bone-filled passageway as Papillon warns them to proceed cautiously and to follow Zed. But Benji finds it difficult to continue and begins to panic, saying he's stuck. Benji moves on after Scarlett pushes him to do so and clears the bones out of his path. Fortunately, the group escapes unscathed when the tiny corridor collapses. Scarlett perceives that they are circling again and forth, passing by the same closed hallway. Benji strikes Papillon out of frustration, yet he maintains that he is correct. When they kick at stones in front of a corridor and end up back where they started, where Papillon says he's never been, confusion sets in. In the distance, they hear a phone ringing. Papillon explains that phone lines formerly passed through the tunnels. Then George remembers a horrible event in which a building fell and 50 workers disappeared. They find an abandoned piano, which George remembers from his early years but is unable to play fully due to a damaged key. Scarlett dashes off to find the phone when they hear it ring once more while he's playing. When she picks up the dusty phone, she hears a muffled voice ask, "Scarlett, why won't you talk to me?" She hangs up, terrified, and goes in search of Papillon, the mole, and Suxi's companion who vanished. As the ceiling begins to crack, the mole tells them to go but says he knows how to get out. When the group arrives at an abandoned well, Scarlett is adamant that they can locate the chamber under it. Using a harness, they lower themselves one at a time, but when George shouts, Benji runs into him. Before Benji's injuries worsen and George falls into the river, Scarlett tends to him, calming everyone down. After a while, they discover a door, but it leads nowhere. Papillon yells in French, frustrated. Scarlett has to solve a mystery about choosing the right stone after George spots a winged vulture on the wall. Together, they manage to extract the correct stone when the wall gives way, exposing a tunnel. She goes into the tunnel. They discover the word vitriol, a puzzle that might point them in the direction of Flamel's stone, and discover a dead priest whose corpse is remarkably undamaged. Scarlett tells everyone to switch off their headlamps and insists on going deeper, despite the group's misgivings. A passageway's light prompts Scarlett to walk into the water, where she and George help to remove a loose stone. George follows her, eager to see the treasure, while the others arrive when she finds a hidden chamber full with gold. The gang is getting nervous since they have run out of food and water, so Papillon advises them to save headlamp energy. Scarlett uses Flamel's stone to treat Suxi's wounded arm, and to the amazement of the others, she heals magically. In their hunt for a way out, they come to a ceiling door, which Scarlett connects to another door that represents as above, so below, posing even another puzzle. When they come to a stop through a floor door, Scarlett identifies the sign as the gates of hell, and George reads it out to them. Papillon is too scared to go through though, so they use a harness to descend. Scarlett isn't deterred and proceeds to crawl through an area resembling the stone's location, only to discover that everything is in reverse. Startled, they see the entryway has disappeared. When the gang emerges from the water and hears muffled screaming, they realize the priest's body is now decomposing, leading Papillon to question if they are dead. To their surprise, they discover the mole breathing heavily in the darkness and utterly still. As Suxi approaches the mole in an attempt to assist him, the mole viciously attacks her and kills her instantly by hitting Suxi's head on a rock. When the mole vanishes, Scarlett tries to use Flamel's stone to bring Suxi back to life, but it is unsuccessful and Papillon remains motionless, inconsolable. The group continues to move despite the sudden fatality, crawling down a dark tunnel when Scarlett notices a noose that strangely vanishes when she looks at it again. Once more, they reach the deserted well, where the surviving members of the gang securely descend using the harness. When they hear the unsettling whisper Scarlett, the group calls for Benji to make sure he's okay. When Benji hears a baby wailing, he stops short of lowering himself. Suddenly, a woman with a child rushes in front of him. Scarlett sobs, surprised and devastated by Benji's untimely passing, as he subsequently collapses to his death. As they crawl over bones, Papillon and George exhort the group to continue moving. George rushes to clean the bones after seeing a vision of his brother Danny drowning. They hear a terrible, far-off cry, and Scarlett tells George it's not real, but George starts to doubt their sanity. The man is staring at Papillon blankly until he notices a flaming automobile, and he yells, "It wasn't my fault," exposing the scar on his hand. Scarlett, George, and Zed try to assist Papillon as he's being dragged toward the car, but he's hauled underground, so all that's visible are his legs. Zed is devastated by the loss, but George and Scarlett are certain that they have to go on. They run along a hallway, scared, until they come across a figure wearing a long black coat. Scarlett concurs with George when he says that their week in Turkey was the best of his life. Once more, the figure covered in black is seen, this time seated in a chair. Unsettling sounds fill the air as they warily go behind it. The guy rises to his feet and looks them in the eyes as screams emerge from the walls. As the group flees, Zed and Scarlett drag George away as blood spurts from his mouth as he gets bitten on the neck by yelling faces. Scarlett tries using the stone to heal him, but it doesn't work. Scarlett realizes this isn't the true stone when George murmurs, vitriol, which was part of the previous mystery. She makes the decision to return, leaving Zed to tend to George's wound, determined to find it. Returning the way she came, she is drawn into a puddle of blood by a bloody hand, but she manages to get away and sees what she initially believed to be her father hanging in front of her, only a shrieking reflection of herself. After returning the stone to its hidden chamber, Scarlett discovers the true stone, a golden mirror that she can rub her fingers against. As the person with the black coat approaches them, Zed pulls George deeper into the cave. Scarlett finds her father hanging in front of her as she flees, and she sobs and apologizes to him. At last, Scarlett comes back to George and gives him a kiss. Ever since she touched the stone, she has magical abilities. After George is revived, the three of them run, hitting multiple dead ends before reaching another deserted well. Scarlett is adamant that they had to go down the well because the catacombs have been revealing their flaws, and if they correct themselves, they will live. Zed acknowledges that he has never seen his child, although knowing that the child is his, and Scarlett emphasizes that they must face the things that haunt them, such as George's inability to help his brother. The three jump into the well and scream as they fall into darkness, now that they have admitted their mistakes. Zed starts to fear as they crash at the bottom, believing they are stuck. But as Scarlett and George use their hands to push it down, George finds a manhole in the floor. When they are able to remove the manhole and are at last free to glimpse the outside world, they are relieved. After emerging from the manhole, the three of them embrace, finally liberated from their horror. Zed leaves, still shook up, and George and Scarlett reunite. As the film comes to a close, Scarlett looks directly into the lens and declares that her entire goal in life has been to uncover the truth, which would have significant historical significance, rather than pursue financial gain. There you have it then. If so, please remember to subscribe, like, and share it in order to see more fantastic movie recaps. I appreciate you watching.